Welcome to a new episode of the Creative Industry Insight podcast. I'm your host, Bobby. Today, we welcome Special Effects Coordinator Brandon K. McLaughlin, who joins us to talk about their work on The Lost Bus. Brandon will talk us through how he went about creating the intensity of the wildfires portrayed in the film. Please be warned, there are heavy spoilers in this episode. Now let's jump into the conversation with Brandon. Hi, Brandon. Thank you for joining me today.
Well, thank you for the invite.
I think we should do a big shout out to Graham and Gabby for organising this and allowing us to talk about your work on The Lost Bus, which
Yeah,
came out on Apple TV last year, but now it's making the rounds on the award circuit. How have you found the reception to the film?
amazing. Most people in the industry obviously go straight into the technical aspect of how we did it and how all the tools that we used really made the show an award show, actually. I mean, that's why we're going through the award rounds right now. But everybody on the outside, I get the, oh my God, I didn't know that it was that bad. I didn't realize that paradise burned to the ground. Oh, I heard about this on the news, but oh my gosh, that's so intense. I mean, it's just they go into the reality of the whole thing. So it's kind of cool because my work my work put people in the outside world that's not in the industry, we put them right in the middle of it to make them feel the emotions that, everybody was feeling through the situation of paradise burning. And then people on the other side that are in the industry actually stepped back and thanked us for making something amazing, using the tools that we have to make them sit on the edge of their seat, that's the compliment when you get your peers to come up to you and go, Unbelievable, unbelievable." So,
When you read about fires and or stuff that's on the news, it's like unfortunately we're not 100% concentrating, right? Unless you probably sit down and actually are like analyzing every story. So when it says like about a fire, if you don't have a visual, you just have words. It could be anything in your mind. You could think of like a campfire, stove fire, whatever. But then what you guys did on this film, it's just yeah, crazy intensity. And also there's like it's all heightened because everything's dry, everything's feels very dusty. You could feel like there's no moisture in the air, and add the fire as well to it. It's just insane, and the fact that it's something that you can't bargain with. You can't tell it to like, whoa, buddy, slow down there. It's stuff like that. And when you see it in the film, it's kind of just, yeah, it's incredible. And then add also the fact that you probably have to add some smoke effects to it as well. And then also, I don't know if you would need to be part of how the ash cloud is created and how dark it has to be as well.
I mean, obviously they did come up and ask me, can I block the sun out with smoke? And no, that's kind of a far-fetched idea. The amount of smoke that you would need to make it look like night is yeah, I couldn't do that in the States if I wanted to. So I did make the comment of, we need to shoot this at night. This is to really get the true effect of it. And as far as the fire goes, I mean, I've done fire multiple times, and yeah, most people think, when they're reading something like that, they come up with a campfire, they come up with a fireplace in a house or something like that. When I read it and I looked at it, it kind of opened that Pandora's box. Okay, I get to play, right? Because that's the fun thing. Not to sound kind of crazy, but I am the effects coordinator who did it. That's the fun thing about fires that size is because they do all kinds of crazy stuff. You can get away with a bloody night. You could get away with anything you want to throw in there. Fire tornadoes, mats, whatever you want to do and how it burns because it all makes sense. When you're in the middle of a firestorm like that, the wind patterns are crazy. The smoke patterns are crazy. The embers, the wind stops in the middle of it. It's like a tornado. It's just like a tornado and going into the eye of a tornado.
You know, when you're thinking about the weather its side of itself, you're saying that there's no wind, you could maybe bring up a tornado with flames in it. Do you ever think sometimes that even though something like that is real, if you translate it onto screen, it might look not necessarily ridiculous, but slightly unbelievable in the
Yeah.
film, that
Yeah.
sometimes people might think, no way, is that true? This is just, surely this is just pure fiction.
Yes. And ultimately, that's not my decision. But if I do come up with an idea like that, and we did, I created a fire tornado. And because Paul had said that, he showed me a video mid-shoot. He said, "Is there any way to do one of these?" And I said, "Yeah." And I put it together, and we went to go shoot it in a specific sequence. It wasn't the only sequence. It wasn't the only thing that we were doing for the sequence. It was the trailer park sequence. And we both looked at it, and he looked at me and he goes, "Ah, it just doesn't feel real." Even though it happens, even though it does happen in real life. And the video he showed me was a real fire tornado in the middle of the Texas fire, that big fire that they had. It was, I think, 2 years after the Paradise Fire, and it was a real video of it. And so sometimes, yeah, you're right. Sometimes, even though reality is throwing you things that you could look at and go, "There's no way that would happen. There's no way it would, happen in reality." It does happen in reality, but if you don't feel it on the day, you take it out.
I guess as well, like part of it is if it's you have to take it out. It's not. I can imagine it. A part of it is like a bit sad that you can't do it because it's it could be a big set
Yeah.
piece. But then also at the same time, time is money on sets, so you don't really want to
Oh yeah.
be messing about with that. And then if it doesn't look good and you lose a day of shoot, yeah, I wouldn't want to be called into the producer's office then.
Well, I mean, and it's also something that is if you're there shooting and you are doing an effect like the fire tornado and it completely takes your eye off of what the action you're supposed to be paying attention to, then I mean, I understand the reasoning behind let's pull it out because you don't want the audience members to go, "Oh, wow, look at that. Look, we'll see what's happening," and miss everything that's over here on the right-hand side of the screen, right?
Mm.
So it makes sense in several different ways. I got past that after the first 5 years of being in this business where you work 2 months on a project and you get to set, you're ready to shoot it, and they throw it in the trash and don't even touch it. It's kind of hard to swallow that, right? You two months of work and then all of a sudden there was no reason to do it in the first place. So you kind of it's just part of the job. It's part of the job. Some things are going to get shot and some things aren't going to get shot. But I'm there to help facilitate, the ideas that the director has and make them come to life. And, plans change, things change. And you have to be okay with that. Otherwise, you wouldn't be doing what I do because you would be miserable.
Well, yeah, 100%. Like, it's a collaborative process, and
Yeah.
somebody will listen to your expertise while somebody else will have their ideas as well. And it's a
Yeah.
bit of a back and forth of like how you're going to make it work, and how
Yeah.
do you make it practical. I think on like something like the Lost Bus, which again is just reading on the notes that I got, that like using 14 miles of steel pipes with 4,000 gallons of propane, which is pretty insane. Like, how do you sort of talk to your team and communicate with them about facilitating something of that size? Then also keeping on top of it that it's going to be safe and it's not going to cause an actual, it's not going to break out into a fire that's going to damage where you're filming.
There's specific ways to go about doing this. I have done this kind of fire before, but on a smaller scale. So you just multiply it, right? So we did do a town burn and we used a vaporizer and we used 1,000 gallon propane or liquid tank. And all you do is okay, I'm gonna need to do that 4 times bigger. So, you just multiply that. And then in the state of New Mexico, there you have to plumb any gas or any liquid propane per a federal employee. So there's a federal employee that works for the state of New Mexico that comes and certifies everything that we do. Even though we've done it multiple times and we know exactly what we're doing, they have a specific way that you have to do it. You have to use schedule 60 pipe, schedule 80 pipe. You have to, do this joint. You have to use this kind of a compound for the threads and so on and so forth. So not only do I know how to do it, but it also makes the company feel a little bit safer because now I have somebody else looking over my shoulder, not just looking over my guy's shoulder, but looking over my shoulder and coming in and certifying and saying, yes, the state of New Mexico verifies this and you are allowed to burn. As far as keeping things safe, we have full control over the each and every fire had its own valve and needle valve. So we could adjust the flame size in a matter of milliseconds, had guys on it. And then also everything that is burning was built in my shop. It's all steel. So there's nothing to burn except for the fuel you're putting into it. And then the main thing that you just have to keep in mind is, how close are you and how much radiant heat are you putting on a trailer, the wall of a trailer or a car and that's just in testing. You can say, okay, well, we got about, 2 or 3 minutes. We can run this high, this much fuel, have this big of a fire, and it only brings the temperature up, 50 degrees on the side of the car or move the car a little way. So it's a little bit of, we would set everything up the day before shooting. We would ignite everything, which is part of getting certified for the propane guy in New Mexico, which we have another name for him, but I can't say it on a podcast because everybody does not like the guy because we all pretty much know him way more than he does. Anyways, them sidetracking. We would ignite everything, we would light everything, each piece that we're going to go shoot. And then at that time, I would have guys going and checking everything and go, okay, that's a good level. Or I would sit there and set a level and say, okay, I like that level. Let's do that. And then move to the next one and let's set that level. And then at the end of the certification, when he goes away, we go back out there at night and I would light everything and then do my final adjustments. And then we make our marks on all our valves. And then we know exactly where we're going to be on the day. But we can still kind of adjust a little bit, when we go to shoot. So it's very controllable, very controllable. And then we had, fire suppression. We had 1.5 inch water hoses connected to, water trucks, and I had the whole set surrounded. So just in case something did happen, we had we had a backup plan, to be able to, we had fire suppression to be able to put it in. And then I also had a local fire department, one representative there with a radio. So we had direct contact to the closest station. So if anything were to happen, that's how I always like to plan things. I go to the most ridiculous thing that could possibly happen and work my way back into, okay, let's do the shot so that I know that I'm covered at least 2 or 3 steps in, past the point of going, okay, I don't have it anymore. It's yours. Everybody leave.
Yeah,
So
of course. It's fascinating though to hear the, of course, you need the health and safety side of it by having a certified person there, but then also it's the way that you guys have probably built all these rigs, and the material that you need to use, the testing that needs to go through,
yeah.
but then also having the fail safe there and how much knowledge you need to know about fire.
I mean, a lot of that comes with 32 years of doing this. I mean, I did a podcast not too long ago and I said, the majority of the stuff that we do once you get to the point that I'm at, you've done it already, right? And so now it's not how do you do it, but it's how do you tweak it to make it what's needed for this show, right? Because if I do fire for this and then I go do fire for something else, it's the same behind the scenes. It's the same exact thing, right? It's just, are we making trees or are we burning cars? Are we burning a building or are we so you make those tiny little adjustments to make everything happen. So it's not like, okay, all of a sudden I've never done fire before and I'm walking in and I'm doing it, right? There is a protocol to how you end up doing this. And you can do it a couple different ways. It depends on what your capabilities are, what you own as far as equipment, what the shot's calling for, how fast you have to move from shot to shot, you know? So there's a lot of things to take into consideration before you can actually pull the trigger and go, okay, I'm doing it A, B, C, D, E, and F, and G.
It's again, as you said as well, it comes down with experience and sorry for the pun, but playing with fire.
It's okay.
You'll get burnt to then know what to do and not what not to do. Especially as you said, like when you have so much experience, because it's like with special effects, I think people forget how much happens in camera with special effects and how much different crews do and how important it is. It's like even something simple like just like the Atmos that people are creating, probably, the dust that you might need during the shoot pre-fire to show that just how dry it is and how quickly some of this would spread.
Yeah.
And as an audience, you wouldn't notice that. You just think that's just something that's been added in. But then also, like talking about fire and just the experience of it, yeah, like probably having that experience, you kind of think like everything that I've been working up to, boom, is going to be for this, and I can really show off what we can do. And even mentioned it before with on the day with Paul when you said, "Oh, it doesn't look, looks fake," and you think, okay, well, that gives me an idea of like how we can make it a little bit more intense as well. And you can see that in the scene when they're at the trailer park with all the propanes like exploding, and you just think like seeing all of that, like that must have been fun to do because you're exploding stuff, but at the same time it's probably really dangerous, but also really cool.
Yeah, yeah, no, I mean it's I wouldn't say well, it would be dangerous if you don't dot your I's and cross your T's, right? Doing that kind of stuff is it's not cool to me anymore. It's making sure everything goes off safely, making sure that nobody gets hurt, making sure that we get what is needed for the story, what the director wants to be able to help tell the story. Not be too big, not be too small, you know. I mean, that's more of where I go nowadays because I don't know, I've done probably 50,000 freaking explosions. I mean, it's, you know, I'm going a little overboard, but it's up there. It's well past a couple thousand, you know, in my career. And I've done everything from, you know, blowing a walkie-talkie up in a guy's hand to massive explosions to bring buildings down, you know. So once you do all of that and then you get into, okay, how are we doing this? And you start getting into the whole design aspect of how you're doing it, what you're putting where, who, what, how. That's more of the interesting part to me, right? And then of course I'm not gonna say that I wasn't exciting because when you push that button and you feel the concussion, yeah, you get a little jolt of excitement when you do it. But what gives me more excitement is when I see the director's face and I look at it and he looks at it or she looks at it and it fits like that. It's unexpected, but that's about what it would be. That's the size that it would be. And when you do that and you pull it off and you get that shot, the adrenaline rush from that is amazing. It's just that's why I do it. You know, that's the fun part, right? Because it's months leading up to that point, and then you hit the button, and it's like that's what it's supposed to be, right? It's not there's no question, right? So, oh well, you know, I should have been a little bit bigger. I should have put, you know, half a gallon more gas in it, you know, that kind of thing. So it's tricky, but it's really awesome when it all comes off, you know, the right way.
Mm. And we could see it on the screen as well, and just the intensity that you see as audience members. I wonder if you were to
Just to
watch.
go back,
Oh,
just
go
to
on.
go back for 1 second, just so your audience members can hear this. I know what a propane tank looks like when it blows up because we've blown them up full of propane on Deepwater Horizon in a parking lot. So I know exactly what it looks like. So I knew exactly what to make it look like, right? So who can say that? Yeah, I put a shape charge on a real brand new propane tank, 100-gallon propane tank, and we blew it up. So I know what the fireball size is, you know, but it goes back to experience, right? Because I've done it.
Yes, and there's also the fact that once you do it, I think when you see something like that, maybe you just can't get it out your mind because you know the size of it. And if you have photos as well, you can kind of measure the height of what something
Yeah.
like that would be, especially if you know that it has like 100 gallons of gas in it or something.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Um, I was going to mention, I was like, I wonder what it'd be like if you watch like this film in like 4DX with like the explosions and the heat, like because it's like one of those cinemas that you can have like with like the shaking and like water spraying
Yeah.
and all
No,
that
thank
jazz.
you. I'd get sick probably. I mean, it was hard for me to watch it in a theater with it, you know, the way that Paul was shooting it, you know. I mean, I completely got it. That's the whole point of what we what we were trying to sell the audience, but it's difficult for me to watch just because I don't, it's the focal point,
Yeah, I get what you mean. What I'm curious to know about as well is how do you go about working with VFX department? Because you probably have a plan of how big they want to do, how big the flames should be, but then also they need to sort of magnify that a bit more because there's certain things that you can't do because it's not safe or it's just not practical, or you might not have enough
Yeah.
time to do it on set,
Uh,
so it's easier to do it in post.
Charlie Noble and myself, we were hand in hand the entire film. We were hand in hand. We would discuss every single shot. We knew before we even started shooting what all the special effects and visual effects were going to be. There's certain things I can do, and there's certain things that he would have to do. And we started off. The very first meeting I had was I told the executive producer, "There's I'm just letting you know this. There is no physical way that I can create this much fire to keep everybody safe." Okay, I can't have 22 kids in a school bus and create thousands of degrees of temperature outside the school bus. The paint would melt on the school bus and the kids would cook. What I suggest is that I give you as much as possible so that you have the lighting effect, so that you have the reaction out of the actors, so that you do have that edge of the seat. Oh my God, they're driving through a fire. And then visual effects builds on top of that. And my suggestion to him was you don't want to go from a visual effects fire to practical effects back to visual effects back to practical effects. So what we did was we did as much fire as we could in specific settings, and then if we couldn't do a ton of fire, we would give them spot fires so that there was constantly a practical fire in every single sequence, so that they had something to build off of, so that they knew what real fire looked like, right?
I guess as well, like knowing again when you're talking about it, you could say it's going to be 10 foot high, but once you see it like visually and practically as well, you're saying the spot fire here. So if we have it, I don't know, simmering, so it's only a foot high. When your guys kind of look at it and start building on it, you could add it up and make it bigger.
Yeah.
But then you also, as a VFX team, they can look at how it moves as well, because
Yes.
I think that's like a big thing of like if there's no wind, how does it spread? But if it's going to spread this way,
Yeah.
is it going to move to the left? Is it going to move to the right? How
Yeah.
does it jump that way? And again, it's probably like the logistics of just fire moving is quite a
We
lot.
had Charlie and I, well, actually Charlie did all this. Charlie did a whole layout of where the bus was going to drive, what direction the fire was going every time the bus made a turn. We did specific sequences to tie all of that together because Paul wanted to stay as close to reality as possible. And when we did that, we would set the fans so that we could blow the fire a specific direction so in post you could see this is the direction that everything's supposed to be going, or that's the direction everything's supposed to be going, so that they had an understanding, because we did right hand turn, left hand turn, left hand turn, right hand turn, right hand turn. I mean, you could get lost really quick and easy, but it is also one of the saving factors is that in a firestorm like that, fire does whatever it wants to do. It could be traveling to your left, but the wind's coming from the left to the right because it's swirling. I mean, that's the whole thing with fires that size is they create their own weather pattern with the smoke and covering out the sun, and the tornadoes and just the different directions the wind would blow. So you could get away with a lot.
Yeah, and I still think like even like logistic wise, because as a what I'm curious, when you have something like the bus as well, when it's moving through fire, like that must be something that you have to think about as well, because does the bus create some sort of wind that's going to push it through? But then also, what does fire do when a bus goes through it, for example?
Yeah, I mean that's totally dictated off of the speed of the bus, and you would get eddies off the back of the bus, wind eddies off the back of the bus, or turbulence. and it would affect the fire a little bit as it's traveling through because you are moving air. But with the amount of air that was moving with the wind and everything else inside the fire itself, you wouldn't get it was kind of unnoticeable of what the bus would do because it was never traveling in the 50, 60 mile an hour range. It was crawling through most of that in reality. So it's more along the lines of let's just make it out safely. Let's find a direction to get out safely.
Yeah, that's true as well. I guess I would think more about how if you're sort of trying to escape from one area, have you accidentally dragged it to another area because of just the way that you've been
Oh
moving?
yeah, it's. I mean, and the radio was down. I mean, everything was down. Cell was down. Everything else was down. I mean, it was pure luck that they made it out. It didn't know where it was going. I mean, it ravished that town in an hour, hour and a half. The town was completely consumed. So if you were in the center of town, it didn't matter what direction you were going in, you were going to be into fire. Yeah,
Crazy,
and it
honestly,
was just
mental.
yeah, exactly. And it was purely on his memory of the town and being born and raised there and knowing the little secret paths and how to get out of the town and what way to go, which is the quickest to get out. And it's just a harrowing story, truly harrowing story.
Yeah, and again, how does someone sort of even manage that is just an insane thing as well.
Yeah,
Um,
with the
yeah,
stress and the adrenaline, how do you keep a straight mind?
yeah, exactly. I just don't understand that. I just don't even going through those sort of areas, and even though that a certain area might work, it still might not work because you don't
Yeah, you don't know.
know. Yeah, you just don't know. So yeah,
I mean, if
insane, really.
somebody was trying to use that before you and they got consumed by fire and they burned up in their car and then there's a car in the middle of the road and you can't get past it. You don't know any of that,
Yeah,
until you get to
exactly. Yeah, exactly. And then you just have to hope that it's not going to be anything
it. Yeah,
there.
yeah. Fingers crossed. Hail
Yeah,
Mary.
pretty much. Yeah, mental, really. Also, I think just to sort of wrap up the episode, when it comes to working with something that's like based in real life, how do you go about trying to be? Because I guess with fire and what you're doing, it's all kind of like having fun and whatnot. But because it's based on a true story and these happen to people, do you ever think about how you could be respectful in the way that you're portraying your work, or is that something that is not needed in something like this?
Oh no, absolutely. That's taken into consideration. There was a couple meetings with Paul, and he stressed it to where, he wanted to be as true to the story as possible. I had a kind of an ace in a hole. My shop foreman who ran the shop for me, he was born and raised in Paradise. So he had communication with people while it was going on, and he knew kind of what happened. And there's a lot of YouTube videos out there of people that put them online, and you can kind of grab bits and pieces from all of that stuff, but you definitely want to, when you're telling a story like this, you always want to do justice to the souls that were lost, right? You don't want to step over any lines whatsoever. I mean, my biggest thing is that we needed to sell the fact that there was no way out, that they were going to die, right? Because that's what keeps the audience on the edge of the seat, and that's reality. That's reality. That's how, there's an interview um, from the driver Mike, and he said that he says was sure that I wasn't going to make it, but I was going to give it all I got. I knew right off the bat I was going to make it. So that's what we had to do. We had to sell that. We had to sell the fact that every turn they made, they weren't getting out. They were not going to live through this. They were not going to make it through this. And that's what Paul wanted to tell. Paul didn't want you at any point in the movie. Paul didn't want you going, they're going to make it. Oh, don't worry about it. They're going to make it. Even though it's a real story and they do make it out. He wanted you to feel that there is no way. And when I read the script and I told this to Paul, I said, you don't know. You really don't know. Even though you know the real, you know the truth, the reality of it, you don't know when you're reading the script. You're sure that they're going to die. You're absolutely sure they're going to die until like, the end of the third act, all of a sudden they blast out into this clearing and they make it out. But it's that, those are the things that you have to keep in mind when you're making a film like this. You have to make it a harrowing experience. You really do. You have to keep the audience members on the edge of their seat. And we always, no matter what film I work on, we always keep in mind, how's the audience going to feel? What's the story that we're trying to tell with this? What do we want, an average layperson who doesn't know anything about movies, how are we going to make them feel when they see this on the screen? You always take that into consideration, you know?
And again, I guess like it can be quite simple to forget about that it is a real story. And
Yeah.
when you say you have those YouTube videos of people, and then even your foreman who is from there, which must have been, it feels a bit weird for him to be working on
Yeah.
something that's so close to home.
I called him before I accepted the job, and I asked him, and I told him that I was being offered this and I really want to do it, but I want to make sure that he's okay with it, and he was fine. He was okay with it. There was a time where he broke down when we got the blueprints for the school, for the elementary school. I don't know if you remember the part in the movie, but they show up to the
Yeah,
Paradise
the
Elementary.
drop off. Yeah.
Yeah, and they're supposed to drop all the kids off, and the school's ablaze. We were rebuilding that was a set that we built, and we got the blueprints of the from the art department, and there was the old pictures of the school before it burned. And he goes, "Oh yeah, I had lunch there. I got used to get picked up there, and that's where I had my first grade class, and that's where I went to sixth grade, and this is where I got hit by Johnny something. So it was there was that point where, him and I had a good conversation about it, but I mean, it's got to be hard, man. The place that you're born and raised in, and you're going back, what, 7, 8 years? No, 2018. Yeah,
Yeah.
2018 is when it happened.
So
So
8 years.
yeah, you're going back, 8 years to shoot all of those emotions that you had before. And his mom had lived in the center of Paradise. She had, 1 week before the fire, had paid off her house. She owned her house. She paid the mortgage off and she lost it. So those are some big emotions that you're going to have to drag back up, right?
Yeah, 100%. And also the fact is like that's where I used to go to school. These are all
Yeah.
memories from like whatever 5 years old to about
Yeah.
or to 10
And
or to 12 years old. And
yeah.
also the fact that your mum as well, well, absolutely
Yeah.
gutting.
But he was good. He was excited. He wanted to do justice to, he knew some of the people that, perished. And he wanted to do justice. He wanted to do justice for his mom and for his dad, and for his brother, and the people that were lost in the fire. And so he dove into it, 100%.
Mm. And it's good to hear as well.
Yeah.
And it's good to hear about as well as like how to be respectful about how you go about doing it and thinking about it and that it is a real life and
Yeah.
you can't forget that. And
Yeah.
especially when you have somebody who works with you that's gonna be so close to home as well. So
Yeah.
yeah. Brandon, thank you so much for your time today.
Oh, my pleasure. My pleasure. Thank you, Robert.
The Lost Boss is streaming now on Apple TV. Go out and see Brandon's heated work and make and check
Please,
it out.
please. I enjoyed it. We had a good time. I was very proud of that work. I'm very proud of the work. I told Paul that too. I said I'm very proud of what we did. Really am. After I saw it, I'm like, it looked really good. It did. It looked
Yeah,
really good.
but no, that's an important thing. You need to be proud of your work, and then I guess
Yeah.
it's extra when you see it and you kind of like maybe have a bit more context of what's going on and how it's
Yeah.
done in like the final edit and
Yeah,
post-production
because
side
when
of things.
because when you're shooting it, I mean, I'm not thinking about that stuff. I'm going
Yeah,
shot to shot, making sure everything's ready, and so you lose track of that real quick and easy.
yeah, you're not looking at the monitor, you're looking
No,
at
no.
if whoever's set on number five, gas valve number
Yeah,
five.
yeah. But
Yeah,
the level's right, and yeah, exactly. It's
yeah.
exactly.
Thank you again, Brandon. You take care and bye bye.
Oh, thanks, Robert. Appreciate it. Have a good one.
You too. Thank you. Thank you for listening. Please subscribe, rate, and review this podcast.